Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for May the 4th. Today I'm going to talk about Near and Far, an expansion for 5 tribes, Pandemic Iberia, Takano Kids, as well as the Kickstarter for Noirlandia. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. I hope you get at least 8 Star Warses today. And they probably just simultaneously released like a trailer for Rogue One or something, so nobody's watching this anyway, but thanks you for tuning in. Thanks you. All right, on to board game news. Ryan Locat announced Near and Far, which is going to be a sequel to Above and Below, his hit game from last year. Ryan Locat just never ceases to amaze me. He does the game design, the graphic design, the artwork, the marketing, the publishing, he does all of it by himself, which is crazy. I'm sure he has people that like help and playtest and stuff, but like for a person who regularly is one of the best kind of artists working in board games, it's crazy that he's also designing those board games that he's very well known for. So crazy stuff from Ryan Locat. He says that Near and Far is going to be sort of like Above and Below, where there's going to be a storybook that you have elements that you read throughout the campaign. However, this time, players are going to read the book kind of in order over 10 game sessions to reach the end of the story, so it has more of a focus on kind of like an ongoing narrative, something like Mice and Mystics. And yeah, this is more examples of narrative kind of entering the board game hobby in a big way. So pretty exciting stuff. We get a mini expansion coming out for 5 tribes. This is the Thieves of Naquala. I don't know if I wrote a G or a Q, but it's one of those things. It's either Nagala or Naquala, but you'll figure that out. This introduces 6 new thief cards as well as a new djinn. So it seems like the thief cards are going to have a little bit of a take that mechanic where people have to discard either cards or their area on a tile or djinns and different stuff like that based on when you play the card, and you get to pick one of the things that they have to discard. So if you like take that in your brain Bernie Moncala Euros, then you're probably pretty excited about this one. Z-Man Games released a teaser trailer for Pandemic Iberia because we only had one Pandemic retheme coming out this year, so of course we need a new one. This is going to be a standalone Pandemic game. It's set in 1848 in Spain. It seems like the main change in this version, travel is going to be a lot harder, where you can't just zip from city to city because, it's 1848, travel was harder then. So you're going to have to like develop railways and stuff like that in order to move efficiently between places. They announced that this is going to be a limited one-time printing. I imagine it's going to be a gigantically huge one-time printing, so it's not like 1 of 1,000 copies or something like that. And it seems like it's probably in line with their Pandemic tournament series that is having its main event in Spain this year. So it's got evocative artwork. I know a lot of people are kind of interested in the theme, and I guess they're picking up a different demographic than the Cthulhu Pandemic is going to pick up. So I try to balance, so I'm going to go off on a tangent here, where I try to balance like my actual opinion and personality on these, even though I'm not in any way reviewing these. Obviously, I've never played them. They haven't come out yet, with kind of not being a snarky asshole. But stuff like this makes me want to be a snarky asshole, because do we really need another Pandemic game? And the answer is clearly no, but you guys are going to buy it, so people buy it. That being said, Pandemic Legacy is great. You should totally go buy that Pandemic game. All right, moving on. Antoine Bauza tweeted out this week that he was playtesting a game called Takano Kids, which a lot of people speculated was a new expansion for Takanoko, and then he clarified on Twitter that no, it was actually a standalone game, and it's going to be kind of a kids version set in the Takanoko universe, which makes a whole lot of sense because Takanoko is already very cutesy and a simple game. So, making it a kids game out of that makes total sense. This is kind of following a trend with like My First Stone Age, and they made like a simpler version of Agricola to hopefully get families and kids involved. So it seems like the market is moving a little bit, not moving in that direction, but I think expanding out like in that direction as more and more people get into board games, more and more people with kids get into board games and want to play cool board games with their kids. So this is exciting. I think Takanoko is great, and I think this is a perfect fit for a kids game. This week's Kickstarter is for Noirlandia, which is a one-shot indie RPG that doesn't have a game master, so it's kind of like Fiasco, if you're familiar with that game, where you play the entire story in one night, and you don't have anyone having to like sit there and say like, okay, you roll 3 dice and you put on that armor. I don't know. That's not how RPGs are played, but imagine that. So this is a murder mystery. The thing that really appeals to me about this is it's got a really cool mechanic where you're actually having to like pin up pictures of suspects or people on a like cork board and then connect them with strings, so it looks like, you know, all the detective movies where they're trying to like connect the dots. I think that's really cool and really evocative and a really cool thing for an indie RPG to tackle. Really smart. If you're interested, it's $25 right now on Kickstarter if you want the physical book as well as the PDF. So go back that, and yeah, we'll all be happy. All right, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel, as well as go follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Chris Bryan Games. That would make me very happy. Also, I run a geek list that I update regularly, or not as regularly as I should, but pretty regularly with the games that I'm excited about that are coming out in 2016. So if you're interested in that, I put a link in the description below. You can go subscribe to that geek list, and maybe we can talk about games, because yay, games. All right, the question for this week. Side note real quick, you can ask questions in the comments of these videos that you want me to answer next week. Maybe I'll start doing that instead of the Twitter thing, or in addition to the Twitter thing. So yeah, and this question actually Tim Manson asked on last week's video, and he said, how do you keep on top of board game news for these videos? One of the reasons I started doing these videos like 3 years ago was because it's really hard to find a source, a reliable source for your kind of best board game news, where there's a lot of sources with a lot of board game news, but most of the stuff didn't appeal to me very much. So I wanted a thing that was quick and only hit the like main topics of the week, the biggest news of the week. And that's why I started this. And where I get my news, mostly it comes from BGG News, which Eric Martin does a great job running, but it's a little bit hard because he'll have 3 or 4 stories in one article, and they're mixed in with stuff that I don't really care about and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of kind of keeping up with that if you want to be up on news. I also watch the Dice Towers Board Game Breakfast to get Tom Vassel's news. But again, a lot of times there's a lot of stories in there that I'm not that interested in, and he often kind of only says 1 or 2 sentences about a game, where I like to go a little bit more in depth. DicetowerNews.com does a good job of doing news. Shut Up and Sit Down, but now they've moved to every 2 weeks. So usually by the time their news is out, I've already covered those stories. I check the Our Board Games Reddit daily to see kind of what that community is really interested in and get news that way. I follow different companies on Facebook and Twitter to get all that kind of stuff. So I get it from a whole range of sources. And hopefully I'm an easy way that you can concisely kind of get the top stories from each one of those sources for you. But yeah, I would recommend any of those, especially the BGG News. That one is definitely the most comprehensive, but along with it being the most comprehensive means that there's just a lot of stories that you might not be that interested in along with that. But yeah, so that's how I do that. Thanks for the question. You should ask me questions in the comments below, and I'll either answer them or I'll answer them on next week's news or something like that. That'd be cool. Thanks for tuning in this week. May the 4th be with you, and I will see you next week.